The fourth, we believe that all men are created equal.
To the magnificent mosaic that is America.
From radio beacon to radio beacon. I have a dream today. Change has come to America.
Believe me.
Knock, knock. Who's there?
It's a figment of your imagination.
Randi Rhodes Show.
Turn up your mind.
Congress right now is it's like a room full of doctors arguing about what to do over a cancer patient. And half of them are arguing over whether medication or surgery is the best approach, and the other half are saying cancer doesn't exist. Think of what a disservice this is. This is a life or death issue.
So how do you plan to help communities of colors in times of climate change-fueled disasters?
Thank you. That is a key question because we need environmental justice in this country. People who are economically disadvantaged and people of color, many times they're the ones left behind. And when those houses get ruined, and you can see it in the Bahamas right now, when those houses go down, it's often the houses of those that can afford it the least.
As we experience more storms with more intensity, we need to both take the right steps to prevent climate change so that that won't happen, but then when it does, if it does, to address it, no matter who you are, and make it affordable, in part through that National Flood Insurance Program. I'm committed to doing that.
I'm going to warn folks right now. If you elect me your president, I'm going to ask more from you than any other president in your lifetime. Because I grew up from parents who taught me if there is no struggle, there is no progress. We can ignite that moral imagination of this country, and we can deal with this problem. As big as it may seem, it's not bigger than who we are as a people together.
Believe me.
Yes. So did you watch seven and a half hours of climate change? Did you watch? So it was a lot to take in, you know. And then the only thing that I think people will remember is Elizabeth Warren, because she was amazing, just got to say, and Joe Biden's eye just burst into bleeding. It's what can I say? I mean, I got a busted lip, so yeah, I get, stuff happens. You still got to show up and they stick a camera in your face. But I don't think he understood. I don't think he knew that his eye was bleeding. And I think it sort of shocked Anderson Cooper. I think Anderson was sort of wanting to tell Biden, your eye is bleeding out, but he didn't. It was very awkward. The whole thing was. Now, for the Republicans, they'll never vote for Joe Biden because they'll think it was an omen or some such thing. I know it's a benign thing. Everybody's had it, haven't you? Hasn't everybody had, like, the white of your eye, just turns like beet red because a blood vessel has burst, or it's leakage in the, totally is leakage, like our caller said the other day. He was talking about Joe Biden, and he was trying to explain as an older man that, older men experience leakage in the brain is what he would, and I was so glad he cleared up the brain part because, I was at the other end and, it was really pretty vile. So this was good. So yes, he was right. I think his name was Warren. Warren was correct. Joe Biden is experiencing leakage. And, listen, it was creepy looking. Did you see? I don't know if you saw. I really don't know here.
Also, I just want to point out in fairness to the governor of Pennsylvania, he's stopped short. He's moved to regulate and limit some fracking, stopped short of calling for a statewide ban. So just to be clear, you would not call for a ban statewide on fracking or nationwide. You said stop new oil and gas drilling on federal lands.
Yes.
Okay.
And I would also go back and look at what's out there now to determine whether or not it is safe, physically safe. Mm-hmm. There's a called earthquakes and the like. That's what I would do.
Our next question.
There used to be an EPA. And no, you think I'm kidding. It's almost not.
Oh, my. Do you see it? They'll leave it up there. You see it? You see it? You see it? So, listen, it's one thing if your eye goes all Halloween during a live televised event, but Biden's answers, I think, were more disturbing than the eyeball is what it is. He had to explain why he is going to a fundraiser tonight hosted by a fossil fuel executive.
Now, our fundraiser hosted by Andrew Goldman, a fossil fuel executive.
He's not a fossil fuel executive, I'm told. He is not a fossil fuel executive. And the fact of the matter is that what we talk about is what are we going to do about those corporations? What have we done? And everywhere along the way, For example, I've argued and pushed for us suing those executives who are engaged in pollution.
That's the wrong answer. The only correct answer to why are you going to a high-dollar fundraiser that's being hosted by a fossil fuel executive is to get money. So, if he would have said that, we would have laughed and said he's going to get money is why he's going. But he denied that Andrew Goldman is a fossil fuel executive, and he is the co-founder of Western LNG, liquefied natural gas. And when you look, he instructed us, it's a longer answer, to go look at the SEC filings and, we should check them out and all this stuff. Well, so we did. Western is managed, this is according to their own website, Western Liquefied Natural Gas is managed by a seasoned team of executives experienced in the LNG and related energy infrastructure industries. Western's co-founder is Andrew Goldman, Chief Investment Officer of Hildred Capital Partners. He is a long-term investor in the liquefied natural gas sector. And then there was a press release that came out in 2018 that also spoke of Mr. Goldman as having a present tense role in the company, describing him as, quote, a long-term investor in the liquefied natural gas sector. And when you look at the leadership, you can go to their website and, click on leadership. He's the second person listed under the leadership on Western site. So just for the sake of clarity, because I think everybody, can understand that his eye just spontaneously erupted. It's happened. It's happened to me. It's happened to everybody. But the answer was worse than the bleeding eyeball. Yeah. And he's had 2 brain aneurysms. And so when, I had to look it up. I've had these before, and I know what they are, and I understand that they're benign. It's a benign situation. It's not like, you have to go running to, a trauma center for your injury or anything else, because that's not what it is. It's a benign disorder. It is very common. Most people have had them. They're called subconjunctival. I can't say it. Hemorrhage. It's a benign disorder. And sometimes it's from trauma and sometimes it's from contact lenses. But it does say on WebMD, which of course is where we go, right? It does say that among the elderly, that it could indicate systemic vascular diseases such as hypertension, diabetes, and arterial sclerosis, and that it's very common in the elderly. I'm sorry. This man has had 2 brain aneurysms, 2 life-threatening brain aneurysms back in 1988. So, hey, it hasn't, slowed him down or kept him, 88, 98, 2008, 30 years ago. He had 2 brain aneurysms, and he said, he's fine. And so let's just accept the fact that he's fine. I just think the answers that he gave last night were worse than the bleeding eye, is what it is, okay? It's just... Again, it's a benign thing. It happens. It's happened to people I'm sure, probably you. It's happened to me. It's indicative of absolutely nothing. Just a, blood vessel that's having a hemorrhage. I'm sorry. But something, if you compare, like if Trump's eye spontaneously erupted and began to bleed like that, it would be even more bizarre. You know why? Because Trump would deny that it's actually happening. That's why. He would go back to a week ago and hold up some photograph of himself a week before it happened and say, you see, it didn't happen because here's a photo of me. Although it would be a week old.
Clear for takeoff. The Randi Rhodes Air Force. Air Force. RandiRhodes.com. All things Randi at RandiRhodes.com.
Go for launch.
Speaking truth to power. The Randi Rhodes Show.
Last month, you tweeted, Donald Trump believes climate change is a hoax. Donald Trump is an idiot. Do you feel...
Did I say that?
Well...
Yeah, I did. Forgot the word idiot. It is so dangerous.
It is.
It is dangerous. We are the most powerful country on earth. We should be leading the world to a global energy transition, and you have a president who thinks it's not real. That is idiotic.
And as it relates to those Republicans in Congress, where I've now been for 2.5 years, every one of those members need to look at the babies, the grandbabies in their life, and then look in the mirror and ask themselves, why have they failed to act? Because on the issue of this climate crisis, I'm going to tell you, I strongly believe this is a fight against powerful interests. And leaders need to lead. So lead, follow, or get out the way. And get out the way starting with Donald Trump.
What bothers me most about what's going on in the country today, we're walking around with our heads down like, oh, what are we going to do? We're in such great trouble. This is the United States of America. There's not a damn thing we've not been able to accomplish once we set our mind to it.
You should not be stressed out about the water that you are drinking and your kids are drinking. And this is, again, the problem with having the almighty dollar running our society, where people look up and say, oh, replacing the pipes is expensive, or, oh, another substance would be more expensive. Are you kidding me? You know what's expensive? Poisoning our kids.
Yep.
You don't get to ruin the air for everyone else, the water for everyone else, the soil for everyone else. We don't just to help giant corporations. They don't get to make our kids sick. They don't get to shorten lifespans because it increases their profitability.
In the year 2100, when my 8-year-old son, Henry, is going to be 88 years old, this planet will have warmed 4.5 to 5 degrees Celsius. As scientists say, at that point, we are screwed.
That is the lay of the land. Those are the facts. That's the creepy part. And, you know, as this is actually being discussed, you have the Carolinas now being hammered by Dorian. This storm, the reason why it was so frustrating, the reason why, you know, it was just a nightmare for us, not because we got flooded or hit or wind or anything. I mean, you look at the Bahamas, there's 2 islands there that barely exist. Those people have to come out of there. We're going to have to take them, or other islands are going to have to make room for the tens of thousands of people that live on Abacoa and on Grand Bahama. There is no way to live there. The bodies, they're just discovering them now. So now they're up to 80 dead. You know, I mean, it's like Puerto Rico, 3,000 people died. And what you have to do is you have to clear out the bodies once the sun comes up, because here's the whole disgusting truth. If you don't, then you get diseased water. You get cholera. You get all kinds of, side effects from dead bodies decomposing in the water. So, I mean, you know, we could extend TPS to the people of the Bahamas and have them come here, you know, temporary protected status, and have them come here. But meanwhile, this storm isn't even over. And Trump is so busy saying he got it right and showing a Sharpie marked map from a week ago when this storm was such a look. The last 4 years, this is what's so sick about this man. Okay, the last 4 years in a row, the Atlantic, where we live over here, has seen 4 consecutive years of Category 5 hurricanes. Donald Trump is very busy sitting there telling you nobody ever heard of a Category 5 and blah, 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 and I never heard of such a thing. And listen, and then he's showing you an old map that's been marked with some sort of a marker, a Sharpie. I mean, it's trending. It was trending on Twitter last night, called Sharpie Gate. Okay, and meanwhile, you have people still in harm's way, because the real damage from a hurricane is not the wind, although it can be. It can rip your roof off if you don't have, a proper roof. But the real damage is the water and the storm surge, and Charleston, South Carolina is finding out exactly what we're talking about, okay? They are flooded in downtown Charleston right now, and it's a combination of storm surge and rainfall, and it's not good. And tomorrow, North Carolina, first half of Friday morning, they're going to be, feeling it, and it's going to be a lot of rain and storm surge. And the president of the United States is literally sitting there trying to say that there's nothing wrong with using a doctored map from a week ago to make himself right, to make himself correct, when the National Weather Service had to put out their own advisory saying, Alabama, you are not in harm's way. You will see no high winds. You will see no water. You will see no flooding. You will see no rainfall from this storm. This storm is not going to you, right?
As the storm is barreling down on the United States, President Trump used an altered map of Hurricane Dorian's path while in the Oval Office today to show that Alabama might have been hit, as he had said, and been
it's a
mocked
Sharpie
online for saying. CNN's White House correspondent Caitlin Collins joins me now. Caitlin, people have now died from this storm, and President Trump is still focused on proving that his tweet was correct?
And remember, the president is in charge of overseeing the federal response to a storm like this, so that's why it's incredibly important what a president says in a time like this. And this all goes back to this briefing today in the Oval Office, this hurricane briefing the president was receiving, where he pulled out this dated map, a map that he received during a briefing last week that showed the projection of the storm of Hurricane Dorian. And it had this little thing called the cone of uncertainty on it. That's where the potential of the storm could go, but the experts aren't exactly sure because, of course, like this one did, it turned. But of course, today it had a little addition to it, this black Sharpie line that had been drawn on top of that projection cone, showing that Alabama could potentially be in the path of Hurricane Dorian, even though experts have said that was not the case.
Not the case.
I am the chosen one.
Not the case. I mean, this is sick because you still have, believe it or not, 110-mile-an-hour winds out there. You still have storm surge. You still have, South Carolina and North Carolina in harm's way. Look at Emerald Isle, North Carolina, right now. I mean, and there's tornadoes that are being spawned by this storm. An idiot boy is sitting in the Oval Office holding up a week-old map saying, I know Alabama was in her. I know.
I know that Alabama was in the original forecast. They thought it would get it as a piece of it. It was supposed to go, actually, we have a better map than that, which is going to be presented, where we had many lines going directly, many models, each line being a model, and they were going directly through. And in all cases, Alabama was hit, if not lightly, in some cases pretty hard. Georgia, Alabama was a different route. They actually gave that a 95% chance.
Okay, he's lying. There was no 95% chance. The storm was never projected to go through the Gulf, which is how it would get to Alabama. That was not real. Spaghetti models, by the way, are not storm tracks. They're just plot lines. We know this because we live in eastern, southern Florida. And the last 4 years in a row, there have been a Category 5 hurricane in each of those years, and the president is screwing around. You have people. Look at this. I mean, and the United States, his base is getting hit right now.
Call in, connect. To speak to Randi, call 561-270-3844. 561-270-3844.
For the most part, I am trying my best to hold it together. It's extremely frightening. It's scary. I feel so displaced and not being able to communicate with the outside, with family. It's scary.
What is your neighborhood like right now?
There's no neighborhood. There's nothing here. We are actually sitting in a car now, just trying to figure out what's the next step. I don't feel safe. I don't see the authorities around. They say that they're here, but I honestly don't see them. There's a lot of death that's around us. It's a lot of chaos. It's a lot of destruction. You could literally smell the death in the air as the water dries up and the sun comes out. Like it's so unreal. It's devastated. Abaco is demolished. It's finished, and we just need a plan. Like what we need help. We need help. We need to evacuate. We need to get out of here. We don't understand what's happening. We need to leave.
Yeah. You can't stay in the Bahamas. You can't. There's nothing there. She needs to leave. She said it smells like death when the sun comes out because there are many, many dead bodies that are floating around the Bahamas, Abaco and Grand Bahama Island. There are many, many, many dead bodies. They haven't even gathered them all up yet. And now you've got this Category 2, which is still, it's almost a 3, which is a major hurricane. Okay, a 1 and a 2 is it's a hurricane. And the water, they're talking about, the water and the storm surge together, about 3 inches of rain an hour, plus a 4 to 6 feet storm surge. Low-lying areas like, Charleston, Charleston is full of historic homes, Savannah too, in Georgia. I mean, these are some beautiful, beautiful places, and they can't survive these categories, these crazy storms year after year after year after year. And the scientists, and see, this is the difference. The Democrats last night spent 7 hours discussing their individual plans to beat back climate change. And the president is sitting in the Oval Office drawing fake maps with, Sharpies. This is a man who says he wants to go to Mars. How is he going to go to Mars? With Elmer's glue and cardboard? I mean, this is just so unbelievable. This is not normal. It's disturbingly abnormal. The president is sitting there. You got a hurricane literally bearing down on his base in the United States, and he's obsessed with faking documents to cover up something wrong he got a week ago by showing you a week-old map that was not even the map. It was doctored. And there was an interview with somebody who was familiar with that briefing in the Oval Office, and they asked him, did the president use a Sharpie? And he said, I don't want to talk about it. I just don't want to talk about it. And, honestly, the reporter asked Donald Trump about it, too. And he said, they said, well, did you use a Sharpie? And he's like, I don't know. I
know that Alabama was in the original forecast. They thought it would get it as a piece of it.
This is
it was
a lie.
supposed to go. Actually, we have a better map than that, which is going to be presented, where we had many lines going directly, many models, each line being a model.
Oh my God!
And they were going directly through. And in all cases, Alabama was hit, if not lightly, in some cases pretty hard. Georgia, Alabama was a different route. They actually gave that a 95% chance probability.
Not true.
It turned out that was not what happened. It made the right turn up the coast.
Oh, my God.
But Alabama was hit very hard and was going to be hit very hard along with Georgia. But under the current, they won't be. Georgia will be possibly. We're going to see. We're right at that point right now. But I think Georgia's going to be in great shape. Everyone's going to be in great shape because we're going to take care of it regardless. But the original path was through Florida. That was probably 3 days. I think that's probably 3-4 days old. The original path that most people thought it was going to be taken, as you know, was right through Florida, where on the right would have been Georgia, Alabama, etc.
Sorry, and that map that you showed us today looked like it almost had like a Sharpie. Right?
I don't know. I don't know.
I mean, he took a Sharpie to a National Weather Service map. And yesterday, as we were closing the show, I told you, it is a federal crime. It's a misdemeanor, but it's a federal crime. It's U.S. Code 18, Section 2074. Makes it a crime to falsify a weather report. And that's exactly what he did. And there's still a hurricane, a live hurricane bearing down on the United States. I mean, I don't even know how to say. The scientists are speechless, not just over his lack of care or this, sharp. I mean, a school kid could have done a better job of, amending that map. School kids know how to use computers. I mean, couldn't you even make the line white so that it matched the rest of the map? Did you have to do it with a black Sharpie so it just stood out like that? I mean, it's just so amazing that people just sit there and take this from him and don't. And then today he tweeted that everything that contradicts him on Alabama, swear to God, this is today, while the Carolinas are literally getting hit with tornadic activity that's tearing up their towns. Charleston is flooded. North Carolina, it's just starting to receive, right? And he's tweeting, quote, all fake news in order to demean. I assume that includes the National Weather Service, who, in violation of Section 18, 2074, he put out a false weather report. I mean, is he going to clean house at the National Weather Service too because he doesn't like that they're contradicting him? This is crazy. This is really... And the scientists are breathless today. They are looking at this storm and what it did. And they are saying very few storms make them nauseous. This is quotes from some people at the National Oceanic NOAA, the Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, NOAA. There's quotes in here from Princeton scientists. There's quotes in here from climate scientists all over the United States who said this storm really, really made them sick. Why? Because they said the idea of the storm stalling the way it did, expect more of this. Because the steering current, see, hurricanes have no steering current. They have no power of their own as far as movement. They rely on the atmosphere to move them, and the steering currents in the upper atmosphere are getting so compromised that the storms just sit. There's nothing is moving them. And they said this was a highly unusual, and the other highly unusual aspect of these hurricanes is that they're not coming off the coast of Africa. They're just developing in the Atlantic and then blowing up in like less than 24 hours. They said that, the rapid hurricane intensification that they're seeing over and over again, that led them to conclude that it's climate change.
Clear. This is the Randi Rhodes Show. To speak with Randi, dial 561-270-3844. That's 561-270-3844.
I want to talk about the ways we make change and how we think about change. We've been talking about a carbon tax for a very long time. And like I said, we've had some regional experiments, some different places, and it's been shown to have some good effects. But I actually have a more aggressive plan that I want to move to. I want to think about the three areas where we get the most carbon pollution in America right now. And what are they? They're in our buildings and homes, right? What we're burning. It's our cars and light-duty trucks that we drive. And it's the generation of electricity, where we're still using a lot of carbon-based fuel to make that happen. So you may remember that Governor Jay Inslee said, let's get tough on this, and let's put in place some real rules about this. So what I've adopted is by 2028, we don't have any more new building that has any carbon footprint. By 2030, we do the same thing on vehicles, on our cars and light-duty trucks. And by 2035, we do the same thing on electric generation. That'll cut 70% of the carbon that we are currently spewing into the air. That's how you make a real difference.
Can you see the difference between the Democratic candidates and the President of the United States and his administration? Can you see the difference here? He's, holding up pieces of cardboard with Sharpie markers on it. A week later, during a major hurricane, while the scientists are literally sitting there saying, oh my God, we're nauseous, because in the last 4 years, we have had 4 Category 5 hurricanes. There was a study that just came out. It is so blunt. The language, just like Elizabeth Warren, it's very straightforward and it's very blunt. And it describes its conclusion, okay? And this is from NOAA. NOAA is the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. They published this really striking, super blunt finding. The Atlantic has already seen highly unusual changes in rapid hurricane intensification compared to what models would predict from natural swings in the climate. Researchers now conclude climate change plays a significant role. Natural variability. Natural, like people say, well, it's winter now and then it'll be summer. You know what? That's natural variability. Here's what they said in this sentence. One sentence. Natural variability cannot explain the magnitude of the observed upward trend. You get that? There's just a whole host of issues that come along with rapid intensification, and none of them are good, said Jim Cosin, one of the study's authors, a hurricane expert with NOAA. Okay? He said the rapidly intensifying storms means that there are more strong storms overall and that they create much more risky situations. Now, just since 2017, $400 billion worth of damage. $400 billion worth of damage. The president is siphoning off billions of dollars to build a stupid wall. He's taking it from the military, who desperately needs their water cleaned up, okay? We had testimony from the military families where clearly they were living in roach-infested, mold-infested, disgusting, the electrical systems, are sparking and catching fire in the on-base housing. And he's going to siphon off from 27 military projects, like $3.6 billion to build his stupid wall. And we've got $400 billion worth of repairs we need to do because he's very busy turning regulations back that simply say things like, use more energy efficient light bulbs. This man is literally trying to hurt us. I mean, he really is trying to hurt us. He's giving us fake weather updates, fake weather reports. He is rolling back every methane. He rolled back the methane emissions. He's rolled back, we've had, cars competing with each other for the most mileage per gallon in hybrid cars. You get half from electricity, half from gasoline, and then all electric cars. I mean, this has been an industry, and it's been a competition, which is what America is good at, and it's what we like to do. And he has rolled back emission standards, except California said, screw you, we're going to stick to our emission standards. Yesterday, for some stupid reason, in the middle of a horror movie on the East Coast and in the Atlantic Ocean, a horror freaking movie, he's rolling back, standards on light bulbs, which will cost you $100 a year per family more to not use an energy efficient light bulb, and will contribute to greenhouse gases. It makes no sense unless you're trying to sabotage your own freaking country's standing in the world and its quality of life. Honestly, I mean, you got articles all over the place. This is another one from the Washington Post today. The headline on it is "Slow, Intense, and Unrelenting: The Science Behind Hurricane Dorian's Most Dangerous Qualities." And the science is clear. This is the first sentence of the article. The science connecting climate change to hurricanes like Dorian is strong. Warmer oceans fuel more extreme storms. Rising sea levels bolster storm surges and lead to worse floods. They spent the whole summer analyzing 70 years of Atlantic hurricane data at NASA. And a man named Tim Hall reported, he works at NASA, that the storms have become much more likely to stall over land, prolonging the time when a community is subjected to the devastating winds and the massive amounts of rainfall. He said seeing it just spinning there over the same spot, which is what we were all watching too. He said you just can't help but be awestruck to the point of speechlessness. A man named Marshall Shepard, an atmospheric scientist at the University of Georgia, he was the former president of the American Meteorological Society. I have a busted lip. It's hard to talk. He said, quote, "Simply unbelievable. I feel nausea over this. And I only get that feeling with very few storms. But he said this hurricane has matched or broken every record for its intensity and for its creeping pace over the Bahamas. But he said it fits the trend lines. Dorian's appearance made 2019 the fourth straight year where a Category 5 hurricane formed at the Atlantic, the longest such streak on record. The Bahamas clocked the highest winds ever recorded, 185 miles per hour. It was actually tied for strongest winds ever observed in the Atlantic. And then they go on to say, the link between rapid intensification and climate change is robust. Robust. Why? Because the oceans are warmer than they've been ever, and they're warming quickly because warm air holds more moisture, and climate change has increased the amount of water vapor in the atmosphere, leading to wetter hurricanes that unleash more extreme rainfall. Now, this is just, I mean, how many signs do we need? And the Democrats are very busy laying out their plans. You had 10 candidates last night, 7 hours. Yes, it was a lot of information, and it was hard to, figure out who was for what and what was for who. And except that there is a $17 trillion market out there for renewable fuel and greener buildings. I mean, the outside of a building, okay, the building envelope is a multi-billion-dollar industry. Like hermetically sealed windows, impact windows, roofs that don't leak energy, fenestration systems that, don't leak energy, where it keeps the temperature consistent inside, or, burning different things than fossil fuels, like, solar panels on the buildings, et cetera, et cetera. That is a $17 trillion business. And you got a Republican Party that doesn't want to hear about new opportunities to build better buildings that not only protect people but protect the climate, because they are in bed with the fossil fuel industry to the point where they can't get a divorce because they'll lose money. I mean, it's the same mentality. Oh, I have to live with her because if I got divorced, I'd have to pay her.
Mary had a little lamb. The fault. We believe that all men are created equal.
To the magnificent mosaic that is America. From radio beacon to radio beacon. I have a dream today.
Change has come to America.
Believe me. Knock, knock. Who's there?
It's a figment of your imagination.
Randi Rhodes Show.
Turn up your mind.
A quick question about going from the worker to the consumer. Today, the president announced plans to roll back energy-saving light bulbs, and he wants to reintroduce 4 different kinds, which I'm not going to burden you with, but one of them is the candle-shaped ones, and those are a favorite for a lot of people, by the way. But do you think that the government should be in the business of telling you what kind of light bulb you can have?
Oh, come on, give me a break.
Is that a yes?
No,
No.
Look, there are a lot of ways that we try to change our energy consumption and our pollution. And God bless all of those ways. Some of it is with light bulbs, some of it is on straws, some of it, is on cheeseburgers, right? There are a lot of different pieces to this, and I get that people are trying to find the part that they can work on and what can they do, and I'm in favor of that, and I'm going to help, and I'm going to support. But understand, this is exactly what the fossil fuel industry hopes we're all talking about. That's what they want us to talk about. This is your problem. They want to be able to stir up a lot of controversy around your light bulbs, around your straws, and around your cheeseburgers. When 70% of the pollution, of the carbon that we're throwing into the air comes from 3 industries, and we can set our targets and say by 2028, 2030, and 2035, no more. Think about that right there. Now, the other 30%, we still got to work on. Oh, no, we don't stop at 70%. But the point is, that's where we need to focus. And why don't we focus there? It's corruption.
Yep.
It's these giant corporations that keep hiring the PR firms that does that. Everybody has fun with it, right? Gets it all out there. So we don't look at who's still making the big bucks of polluting our earth. And the time for that is past. We have a chance left in 2020 to turn this around, but we are running out of time on this one. So we've got to do this in 2020, and that means the first thing we've got to do is we've got to attack this corruption head on in Washington and say enough of having the oil industry, the fossil fuel industry write all our laws in this area. No more. No.
She's so right about all of that. And the idea that, the Trump campaign is selling plastic straws. That's a PR thing. That is a PR firm who's working for the fossil fuel industry that wants each American to be set on the other American, set upon each other about cheeseburgers and plastic straws versus paper straws and, garbage like that. And that is 70% of all of the emissions. 70% of all the problems we have is the way we build and what we burn at home in order to heat those places, in order to cool those places, right? What we burn: electricity, heating oil, liquid natural gas, fossil fuels, right? The other one is cars that we drive. What are we burning to power our cars? Could it be electric or could it be something else? And how do we get electric? And then the electricity itself. How do we generate? Those are the three industries she's talking about: building, automobiles, and electricity generation. And, it's really interesting because, Donald Trump is like, well, the coal miners, the forgotten man. I'm with you. I'm with the forgotten man. Cecil Roberts, who is the president of the Miners Association, stood up at a podium yesterday and said,
what we probably would submit to folks who are wanting to be president of the United States, whether it's Donald Trump or any of the candidates running for office. First of all, let me say, coal's not back. Nobody saved the coal industry. Now, that's a harsh fact, and that's a harsh reality.
But nobody saved the coal industry. This is all a show to get votes in West Virginia. This is all a show to get votes where people frack. This is all a show to get all the electoral votes of some very little states where the population, if it was one man, one vote, and we just picked a president with the popular vote, this president could not win. You know that, right? And so he goes after putting together a map of electoral votes. And he knows he has to talk about coal miners to get West Virginia and Kentucky. And he needs to talk about fracking to get, the western state. I mean, it's so ridiculous. It's so completely obvious what he's doing. And meanwhile, no one is getting help. But there is a multiple trillion-dollar industry that's out there that could employ all these guys with really good mechanical skills. And you know what the number one job is going to be? Windmill installation. You used to work on oil rigs? Well, now you'll work on, windmills.
There is an estimated $17 trillion market for green around the world. Think about it. Green generation of power, but also green to take carbon out of the air, to clean up the water, desalinization. And by the way, a lot of this stuff hasn't been invented yet. So you see this giant worldwide market. People want to do this, or at least feel like they need to because they see what's happening. What can we do? And I've got a three-part answer to that. The first is make the big investment in science and research and development, the things we do best here in America. Part two is we say to the world, you can produce whatever we come up with in our science, whatever devices, you can have it, you can apply it, but whatever is manufactured from it, you have to manufacture right here in the United States of America. That will produce an estimated 1.2 million new manufacturing jobs, good jobs, union jobs, not jobs that pay less, not jobs that are an afterthought, but real jobs. So that's part one of it. We want to sell this stuff around the world. That's how you generate a change in how we see both our economy, building unions, building good jobs, and at the same time, both saving our own nation and the rest of the world on the climate front. These are the kind of changes that we can make together. And let me say one more thing about workers, because I don't want to miss this chance. Understand, we need our smart workers. Mm-hmm. We need the guys and the gals who've been sitting around for a long time, who know how to read plans, and they know how to move big equipment, and they know how to help us, because we're going to need to rebuild our infrastructure around this country. There are places where we're going to need to harden our infrastructure. The oceans are rising. I visit a lot of port cities. I live on. We are going to have to make big change, and that means we need our workers.
There's a market out there, a humongous, gigantic, multiple tens of trillions of dollars to be made by doing what is right for this planet, doing what is right for other countries, doing what is right for our it's just so amazing. So instead of going underground and mining, you will now go above ground and build a wind turbine, or you'll be on a roof installing solar panels. The technology, you got to think of it like we thought about the military-industrial complex during the 40s and World War II. We didn't have an Air Force. We didn't have a Navy. We didn't have we had to build everything. We turned factories that manufactured, stockings into factories that manufactured ball bearings or manufactured parts for airplanes and ships. And that's what we can do. But you have an entire Republican Party that is so beholden to the status quo and the establishment money that they can't divorce themselves from it. They don't know how to do it. They don't care, And the Democrats own this issue. We own it, and we can do it.
Clear for takeoff. Randi Rhodes Air Force. Air Force. RandiRhodes.com. All things Randi at RandiRhodes.com.
Go for launch.
Speaking truth to power, the Randi Rhodes Show.
We thought we'd give you a update on the hurricane. We got lucky in Florida, very, very lucky indeed. We had actually, our original chart was that it was going to be hitting Florida directly. Maybe I could just see that, Kevin. It was going to be hitting directly, and that would have affected a lot of other states. But that was the original
oh my God.
Chart. And you see it was going to hit not only Florida, but Georgia. It could have was going toward the Gulf. That was what was originally projected. And it took a right turn. And ultimately, hopefully, we're going to be lucky. It depends on what happens with South Carolina and North Carolina. But it's heading up the coast.
Let him live in his fantasy world, okay? We will solve the real problems that, need solving. This man is not interested in solving any of your problems. He is only interested in two things: making you afraid of whatever it is that's happening and telling you who to blame for it. Now, I don't know, how you're going to stand there and rage at Mother Nature. I don't know. I don't know how that's going to help you, North Carolina. I don't know how that's going to help you, South Carolina. I don't know.
Do you think they put that up on the refrigerator for the president? Look what you did. We love it.
Oh, listen, like I said, a school kid could have done a better job of forging the map. They actually drew it in a black Sharpie. Couldn't you do it in a white line so nobody would have really noticed that you had Sharpied it? This is just, he is bizarre. Obviously he is not a quality person. He's a bad person. He's a mean person. He's a petty person. He's an immoral person, and a whole host of other things, okay? But that he would put out fake weather forecasts and that a week later still argues the point while North Carolina and South Carolina are staring down a Category 2 hurricane, which is 110 mile an hour winds and 4 to 7 foot storm surges. It's just beyond belief. It is beyond anything anybody has ever seen in this country ever before. And it has to come to an end because we got serious problems. We need serious people to solve them, and they have serious plans. They were discussing them for 7 hours last night. 7.5 hours. Actually, it was on at midnight. Poor Corey. I think he was the last one before I went to sleep. They were all there, and they're all trying to tell you a couple things. All right, everybody's got a slightly different plan. Klobuchar, she thinks there's such a thing as clean coal. This is why. She's a smart girl. She's got a sense of humor. This I know. But this is why she's not going to be in the top tier. Because she was telling people last night there's such a thing as safe nuclear and there's such a thing as clean coal.
You answered a Washington Post questionnaire on fracking by saying that you don't want to ban the method of extracting oil and gas, but would like to regulate it better. You said that safe nuclear power, along with cleaner coal technologies, should continue to be developed. What defines safe nuclear power and clean coal? Don't these sound like oxymorons?
Okay, that's a great question. And I want to be clear, my plan
what I really mean
is
to say
definite, that we have to go to carbon neutral by no later than 2050. I'm a co-sponsor of the Green New Deal, so I'd like to see it even sooner, right? But at the outset, when I look at the numbers, I think we should at least get this done. We have to by 2050, and we have to limit this to 2.7 degrees warming Fahrenheit, or we are going to be in a whole lot more trouble than we already are in today. So when it comes to those technologies, I think storage is an issue. I know Senator Harris was just talking about this with nuclear. But I would look at all the plants we have right now. It is about 20% of our energy, and as you know, it doesn't emit carbon. So I would look at those plants and make sure they're safe and figure out what upgrades we have to make to those plants. But I wouldn't expand nuclear unless we can find safe storage and figure this out. And Yucca Mountain is not the answer. The second piece about this, you asked about coal. No, I wouldn't allow for building of new coal plants. What we're talking about here as we phase out these coal plants is how we can, while they're still existing, how we can make them better for the environment.
You can't make coal clean. It is an oxymoron. The questioner was correct. And Klobuchar is, very, very, down the middle. And she is a status quo establishment person. And there's room for that in governing, but not in a crisis. There's no such thing as clean coal. And unless we figure out what to do with the waste, nuclear spent fuel rods, then we have to stop making spent rods, okay? So now, you got all these different candidates last night. Everybody had an idea. Joe Biden got nailed by a 19-year-old kid who asked, how can we trust you? You're going to a fundraiser for a liquefied natural gas company tonight, right? And Bernie, was asked whether or not he would roll back the plans to overturn the requirements on energy-saving light bulbs, and he said, duh. So, you kind of know where Bernie's at. Bernie was pretty clear about looking your kids in the eye.
Nobody in this room, just think about it, 30 years from now, wants to look your kid or your grandchild in the eye and have that child say to you, Grandpa, you knew back in 2020, 2019, what the scientists were saying. You didn't do anything, and look what you created. Look at the world that you gave me. That is not anything that I want anybody in this room or in this country to have to face.
Yeah, and he's exactly right, because we do know. We do know there are screaming headlines today in major newspapers with science and data from NASA, from NOAA, from Princeton, from every reputable group of climate scientists, presidents of Climate Scientists Association, all telling you that this is the tipping point. I swear to God, they're telling you that these storms are now more likely than not to be the next phase of storms, meaning quickly forming quickly intensifying, quickly getting over land, and quickly stalling and sitting and like Harvey. For you in Texas, that's what Harvey was. Harvey was I call it a sit and spin. I heard them say that on the Weather Channel. Thank you. Yeah, but that's what these storms are. They stall, and they're tremendous rainmakers. And because they're coming from the ocean or the Gulf or a big body of water, they're bringing all the storm surge in with them. And we are literally killing ourselves. I mean, the Atlantic, the whole freaking eastern seaboard, you had superstorms, Sandy. I mean, these are all superstorms. They really need to call them that because that is what they are. They're superstorms that stall. They're sit and spin, super stalling storms. And the damage that they do, we will never recover from. We will never be able to keep up with the cost of recovering from them. And now is the time to, and there's only one group of people that are really, talking about it and putting plans together and ideas together and finding markets that would support us doing this and showing you that workers could go back to work, manufacturing, workers could go back to work installing, workers could go back to work building wind turbines, and the president will sit there and say, they're no good. They cause cancer. You know what? Let's march for the cure for windmill cancer. Let's do that. I mean, he is living in a fantasy world. Let him stay there for the rest of his life.
Call in, connect. To speak to Randi, call 561-270-3844. 561-270-3844.
I mean, listen, guys, let's just be really clear. Donald Trump, he's got everybody excited about those crazy tweets. Meanwhile, with this hand, quietly undoing regulations that were built up over years, including incredible stuff that the Obama administration did, and quietly undoing that. So everybody's distracted by the crazy tweet. Meanwhile, completely deregulating industry.
Methane. He literally deregulated methane. He tried to, roll back clean cars and mile efficiency. I mean, really, what is wrong with him? Unless he's trying to destroy us, unless he's trying to hurt us, unless he's trying to, destroy this planet or this country, it makes no sense what he does. It makes no sense. And the new thing that he did was, he is violating the Constitution. Article 1 lays out what the legislature can do, and it says that only they can appropriate money by passing laws. That is the only way that money gets spent in this country is when Congress appropriates it, not the president. The president is not supposed to be able to spend a dime. And the president is reprogramming. This is the new fluffy word for stealing from the we all thought, we got a military industrial complex. Yeah, and all the money goes to them and goes to them. So he puts all the money into the military industrial complex and then he steals it. Did you ever think that we would see a reduction in military spending because Donald Trump was stealing it to build his stupid wall? But that's what he's doing. He's stealing the money. And the troops, the soldiers and their wives and their kids, they're living in some of the most decrepit housing conditions ever. Yeah, I actually was watching C-SPAN months ago. I played you this clip before of these military moms testifying to Congress about the situation and the conditions of their homes that they're raising their kids in while their husbands are serving.
I'm here today on behalf of military families of every branch and rank. We ask that you act on our testimony and ensure military families receive safe, habitable, and functional housing and a better, more accountable way to resolve problems that arise. I first became aware of the crisis-level military housing issues at Keesler Air Force Base, where termites fell out of light fixtures into our beds. During my 2 years of research and advocacy, I received hundreds of reports from military families of mold growth, rodent and pest infestations, moisture intrusion, lead and asbestos exposures, radon concerns, base contamination, and cancer clusters in their housing. I have felt the helplessness of a fellow Marine Corps spouse as she held her new baby and sobbed while we stood under a collapsing, moldy ceiling in her home at Camp Lejeune. I listened in horror as families at Camp Pendleton told of mice eating through pacifiers in their babies' cribs and electrical outlets catching fire due to wiring issues. Until recent media reports in today's hearing, our efforts to fight for safe housing were too often met with intimidation, personal attacks, and strategic attempts to discredit us and silence our voices. We are appalled by this response.
She should be appalled by this response. And yet, what does Donald Trump do? Today, he announces that he's going to reprogram. This is anti-constitutional. This really is the most un-American president you've ever seen. He hates our Constitution, and he really, really despises the fact that he's supposed to go to Congress to get money, and that Congress won't give him his stupid money for his stupid wall. Although the Democrats did offer him, $26 billion to pay for the whole freaking project in exchange for relief for the Dreamers. A clean DACA bill. And he walked away and turned it down. And now he's stealing money from military construction projects, which would repair their homes in Camp Pendleton, in Camp Lejeune. And you know, when she's talking about cancer clusters out in Fountain, Colorado, you got these stories now of cancer clusters, kidney cancers, especially in the region, all because the water is toxic. Military families are drinking toxic water. 55 drinking water systems at military bases around the world are completely polluted from firefighting foam, which causes kidney cancer. This is a New York Times story from yesterday when Army Staff Sergeant Samuel Fortune returned from Iraq, his body battered by war. He assumed he'd be safe, but then the people around him began to get sick. His neighbors, all living near 5 military bases, complained of tumors, thyroid problems, debilitating fatigue. Soon, the Colorado Health Department announced an unusually high number of kidney cancers in the region. And then Staff Sergeant Fortune's wife got ill. The military, it turned out, had been leaching toxic chemicals into the water for decades. Tens of thousands of Americans, possibly many, many more, are ingesting a group of man-made chemicals known as PFAS. And they've been linked to cancers, immune suppression, and other serious health problems. And we need money to clean up their drinking water. And 4 years after Flint, Newark is drinking bottled water. Chicago has lead in their water. Detroit has lead in their water. Baltimore has lead in their water. Milwaukee has lead in their water. You know why? You know why? Aging infrastructure, baby. We got 1 million miles of pipes in this country that need to be replaced. These pipes were put into the United States in the early to mid 20th century, and the lifespan of the pipes were 75 to 100 years. And now this president refuses to do Infrastructure Week. He refuses to replace these aging, disgusting pipes. And people are drinking lead. And you know, there is no acceptable amount of lead in water. And it is causing all kinds of problems with brain development, cognitive ability, anger management issues. Oh, yeah. There are 5,000 U.S. water systems serving about 18 million people that are in violation of EPA rules for lead in their water. We have 10 million lines in this country, 10 million. You're telling me that's not a jobs program? You're telling me if we had an FDR, we wouldn't have a replacement program right now. We wouldn't have some jobs program where guys who used to drill for, used to mine for coal or are fracking this country into oblivion couldn't be replacing, these 10 million lines. 10 million lead lines are in service in this nation today, right now. There's no jobs to be had with infrastructure, right? No.
Clear. This is the Randi Rhodes Show. To speak with Randi, dial 561-270-3844. That's 561-270-3844.
All right, everybody. Today is a very special day. Note it is. It's our very first day of Pledge Drive for Free Speech TV. Very first Pledge Drive, very first day. Okay, so here's the thing. We don't take a salary from Free Speech TV. None of the talent that you see on your TV, on Free Speech TV, on Roku or Sling or Apple TV or Dish 9415, or if you watch it on DirecTV 348, none of us are taking a salary. What we're trying to do is build partnerships with progressive groups that work to, on the front lines of social change, on the front lines of climate change, environmental justice, justice, right? So what we do is we have to support that platform. And there are 16 people that work there, and they all need to get paid. And of course, there's an enormous amount of equipment there, blah, 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 right? And so we do these pledge drives. And today is day one of my very first one. And all you need to do to donate is go to freespeech.org/donate, or just go to freespeech.org if that's all you can remember. And if you want to do the phone thing, why, that's so 20th century. But if you like a phone, I personally do not. But if you love the phone, just dial 877 toll-free, 877-378-8669, and make a little donation now. If for $20 you get a Randi Rhodes bumper sticker, $50 they're going to give you a Change the Channel Free Speech TV tote bag. $100 they'll send you a long sleeve, really good looking T-shirt that says Free Speech TV, Any Functional Adult 2020. So please do give and support this platform called Free Speech TV. It's an awesome platform. It's having its 25th anniversary. It's well managed. The people are fabulous. And all you got to do is freespeech.org/donate or call 877-378-8669. All right, Scott in L.A.
How are you guys doing?
Hello.
Are you dry?
Yes.
Good. I just wanted to tell you, I got to spend about 20 minutes with Elizabeth Warren last week. And
personally?
Yeah, so I volunteered at the town hall in L.A. And Randi Rhodes, I'm telling you, the listeners, the viewers on Free Speech TV, something is happening with her that I've never felt before.
Really?
Witnessing it in person was mind-blowing. And she spent 20 minutes with me and a couple other little volunteers. She had her arm around my shoulder. We talked. I met her grandkids. She's brilliant. I mean, people were sobbing. They were in dead silence when she spoke. They were up in arms with their son. I mean, something is going on with her. It's connecting with people you wouldn't think. And I don't know how to explain it. I mean, to see it in person and to spend the time with her, I left that arena going, what the heck is happening? And it's fantastic. Yeah. And I just wanted to tell you that, you see it on the TV and you watch these town halls, and I'm going to tell you, 99.9% identical. Every word is exact. She is not just a natural. She is calculated. She is smart. But
you know what it is with her, I think? She is not the establishment. She's real in that she was, authentic. Yeah, she's got an amazing story. She's from Oklahoma. She's self-made. She educated herself at a commuter college. She went all the way. She ended up teaching bankruptcy law at Harvard, no less. and figured out for herself that the fix was in for every ordinary middle-class family, why it was so hard to get ahead, what had happened to the American dream, who bought it away from us, how we could never get out of debt. Then the economy crashed. She was supposed to run the Consumer Protection Agency, which was her idea in the first place, to protect consumers from these predator loans and the appraisers who were saying my house was worth $600,000. My house was worth $300,000. You know, it's a nice house, but telling me I could borrow $300, more than what I paid for it to get people in such debt. And then when the market crashed, you were upside down, right? You now owed $600 on a house that's only worth $300. I mean, she was amazing. And then they wouldn't appoint her. The Senate would not appoint her to the Consumer Protection Bureau. So she said, you know what? Screw the Senate. I'll run for the Senate. That is the American way. That's what's so magical about her. That's why people, and they sort of kind of told you a lie about her over and over again. She won't connect with people. She can't connect with people. I've never seen anybody so enthusiastic to talk about climate science as I did last night.
Oh, I was hot and bothered. And one more thing, just I know you have some Hillary issues. I was a big Hillary supporter when she got the nomination, right? But watching Warren, I go, I get it. I get the problems with that Hillary. I see them now.
Yeah.
I see, and I'm just saying, I don't know. In the debate next
I
week,
voted for Hillary. Let's
be Republican.
Let's just be crystal clear about this, okay? I don't tell people who to pick in the primary. I will do it, day by day, appearance by appearance. I thought Elizabeth Warren won the night last night, okay?
Yep.
However, I have to tell you, back then I felt the burn. So I did vote. I voted for Bernie. If you go to my Twitter feed, you'll see that I tweeted my ballot, which is illegal, but I did it. And I voted for, I did, but I voted for Bernie. And then in the general, I had to fall in line. And I voted for Hillary because this man was a disaster. And that's what people have to do. So for the people that are feeling the burn, go vote for him in the primary. Go do it. You know what I'm saying? If you're feeling Elizabeth Warren, go vote for her. If you're feeling Buttigieg, my kid loves Buttigieg, okay? Jessica really loves Pete Buttigieg. She loves him, and she's probably going to vote for him, and I won't even tell her who to vote for in the primary. Well, that's not true. I will.
You're a good mom. That's why.
Well, of course I will, and I'll actually, make my mother vote the way I want her to too. So I get 3 votes, is what I get.
Well, I'm just telling you, to see it in person, to be in that, and to see the volunteers. I've never worked on a campaign either officially, and these are people with full-time jobs, and then their parents, and then they go and do this for free, and these people are committed. She was, the town hall ended at 7:30. I didn't leave till midnight, and there was still a line around the building. And she loves it.
And let me tell you something. This is what infuriates him, okay, is that her crowds are bigger than his. And it infuriates him.
And she enjoys it. She enjoys the process.
Well, you know what it is? She's a teacher by trade.
Yep.
It's what she loves. And she can take very complex things and make them accessible, understandable, and tenable, reachable, doable. That's the beauty of her. He talks in circles. He lies. He drives you crazy. He solves no problems. He just instills fear about a problem. He tells you your problem is immigrants when it's really automation. So another thing I like about Andrew Yang is Andrew Yang is explaining to people, if you go into a factory, you're not going to see a bunch of immigrants. You're going to see robots. That is where the threat is coming for jobs. And yet this Democratic Party, they can innovate their way into a new market where human beings are completely necessary to fix a broken system of fossil fuel dependence. I love that about us. I love that. I just do. Well, I'm glad people are volunteering. I think that's excellent. Joe in Chicago.
Yeah, hi, Randy.
Yes.
I love your show.
Thank you. My show loves you.
And I just wanted to ask you, do you think we can finally get a woman president?
Why not? Why not?
Yeah.
Why not?
Yeah, that's what well, why not is because I thought we had one. and then they, just pulled the rug out.
Yeah. Honestly, why not? Why can't we have, a president?
So what are they going to do? We get another one that wins. Are they going to pull the rug out?
So tomorrow, you know what I have here? I have the path to 270 for Donald Trump, like where he thinks he's going to get 270. So tomorrow I'll talk to you about the lay of the land in the Electoral College, but there doesn't seem to be the same path. He's going to have to take a different route because he's not going to get Michigan, okay? He's not going to get Wisconsin, and he's not going to get Pennsylvania. So can we get to 270? Yes.
Yeah, but it's so rigged. Everything's so rigged.
That's for sure. That's for sure. But that's why it cannot be close. I always told you that. It can't be close. It has to be overwhelming. And it's my responsibility and people like me to get people to vote.
Clear for takeoff. Randi Rhodes Air Force. Air Force. RandiRhodes.com.
I'm David Pakman, host of The David Pakman Show on the Progressive Voices channel. Check out this clip from my show. I told you before our vacation last week that our friend J.D. Scholten is once again challenging incumbent, disgusting Republican Steve King in Iowa's 4th District in 2020. We met J.D. Scholten down at Netroots Nation in August of 2018. He ran against Steve King in 2018 and lost by only 3 points. Very sad, because it would have been amazing to knock off one of the most vile and despicable members of Congress. King is in trouble, and J.D. Scholten is running. King has said crazy things about abortion. King has reminisced about when white supremacy and white nationalism weren't offensive, saying to the New York Times during an interview, white nationalist, white supremacist, Western civilization. How did that language become offensive? But King is in trouble. Republicans have abandoned him, and he has almost no money. This is so funny. King hasn't received one donation from a PAC associated with an existing member of Congress. This is a common way that these guys fund each other. Corporate PACs aren't donating to Steve King. Special interest groups aren't donating to Steve King. In the first 6 months of this year, King received two donations from third-party political entities. One was from Lamar Smith, a Lamar Smith associated PAC, former Republican congressman, and $2,000 from Todd Akin. Todd Akin is the guy who said that the body shuts down a legitimate rape and thus the woman can't get pregnant. That guy is saying, I want to donate $2,000 to Steve King. Republican Party groups are also not donating. So this guy can be defeated. Think back to 2018. J.D. Scholten lost by only 3 points in 2018, back when Steve King was still able to raise money. This guy, Steve King, is someone who came to power as a tool of big business, quite frankly. He came to power because the bankers gave him money.